Having a good class design is fundamental for the good operation of an application. And this is why we made the Back4App plugin for ChatGPT very smart, especially in the database area. Today, we'll deep dive into the database using the Back4App plugin for ChatGPT. Hi, I'm Alex, the architect from Back4App, and if you enjoy this kind of content, please leave a like in this video and consider subscribing to the channel so never miss out on new content like this. So, if you start with a bad design database, it's very hard as our application grows over time to fix this issue. This is why we strongly focus on the development of the Back4App plugin for ChatGPT to entrust its power to create very efficient database designs. And today we'll deep dive into this, trying to create a few classes that will be designed by describing the problem and allowing the Back4App plugin for ChatGPT to work with the database design for us. So here I am at the ChatGPT website where I have selected the GPT-4 model and I enabled the Back4App plugin for ChatGPT. We already have videos here on the channel explaining how to enable this plugin. And remember, you will need access to plugins in ChatGPT, which most of the times, but not always, involves having a paid OpenAI account. If you have access as a beta user, you might find out over here in your profile. If you open Settings and Beta, go to Beta Features, and you can enable plugins. And I'm going to describe a problem to the ChatGPT only by using human language and trying to tell it what I want to achieve and allowing the plugin to fully work the solution for me. Let's see how it works. So I will start asking ChatGPT to generate a class name for me. So here I am at ChatGPT where I'm going to type. I have a parse app hosted in Back4App. This app will contain clients' data. What is a good name for a class to hold that will hold my client's data? And if you notice, this prompt didn't use the Back4App plugin because at this point there is no motive for it to use, as I've just discussed in the class name. So it told me that client profile, client data, client info, customer details, and client records are good names. So I will opt for client data. Let's use client data. Now this class will need to store the full client's name. What is a good name for holding this data into the class? So once again, it did not use the plugin yet, but it suggested full name, client name, complete name, name, and client full name. So let's opt by a complete name. Let's use complete name. Which kind of data structure is ideal to hold this kind of data? So it suggested to use string, which is totally correct. When we are storing names, we want to use strings. And there we go. It will tell me all the benefits of using strings. So let's tell it to use string. Let's use string then. I will also need to store the birth date of the client. What data type is ideal for this and how should it be named? Now, I imagine it's going to use the date type to set this. And I was actually correct. It chose date. and it gave me a few names options. So birth date, DOB as date of birth date, date of birth, or born on. Let's use birth date and ask it to use as a date. So let's use birth date and use the data type date as you suggested. Now, these clients can also have partners that are also clients. How should I store this information, and what is a good name for the property? Now, there are a few ways we can store this. We could use arrays, we could use pointers, or we could use relations. Let's see what the plugins think it's best. So it said it's a pointer. Pointer has very good advantages because you can retrieve the data of a pointer even if it is another object by doing just one API request. So it's a very good database design to use pointers to have partners like this. If you have multiple ones, then I will choose relations, but we didn't specify this, so I consider this a very good solution so far. So let's use pointer then, and let's call it partner. Now, I also need to know if the client is active or not. How can I store this into the class, and what is a good name for it? And if you've been following, so far we didn't use the plugin yet because you can see there is no green balloon telling that we're using the plugin. I'll show you how it looks like as soon as it's starting using it. So it chose Boolean, which is also correct because we can set it to true or false. And the property name could be is active, active status, enabled, is client data, active, or client data. So let's use Boolean and call it is active. Last but not least, I need to store the geographical position of a client so I can know where that client is. What data type is ideal for this, and how should I name it? Now, it has chosen the geopoint, which is also correct. Geopoint is a combination of latitude and longitude and allows for calculations using these coordinates. And it suggested a few names like location, geolocation, coordinates, position. Let's call it location. So let's call it location and use geopoint as you selected. Oh, I forgot. I will also need to store a picture of the client. The client will submit the picture file to the app. How can I store it, and how should I call it? Now, the ideal data type for this is file, and once again, it chose the correct data type. So as you can see, I've been just describing the problems I want to solve in the ChatGPT alongside with the Back4App plugin is choosing the very best data models and data types, and also suggesting very good names so you can use it. So let's tell it to use the file type and call it picture. Let's use the file type and call it picture then. Now, let's say I also want to add a number of purchases that the client has done with me. So let's also add a property to hold how many purchases the client has done. What is the has made, sorry, best data type, and suggest a good name for it. So to store the number, you should use the number data type, which is once again totally correct. Here in Back4App, numbers can hold integer and decimal values, so it doesn't matter the type of number that you use, it will always be just a number type. And it's going to call it, let's say, orders count. Let's use number and call it orders count. Go. So now it has collected all the information it needs in order to create this basic database design. And it's giving me a resume of all the properties that I have chosen, the data types, and how it's going to store it. So I'll have complete name as a string, birth date as a date, partner, which is a pointer to client data, is active, which is a boolean, location, which is geopoint, picture, which is a file, and orders count, which is a number. And here I have my Back4App account where I created this demo application. As you can see in the database browser, I have no data so far, only the default classes were created. And in here, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to use the Back4App plugin and actually implement this database design for me. So back in here, I'm going to tell it, into my Back4App account, there is an app named demo. Please create this class with all data types as described into that app. So if I just run this, now I expect the plugin to identify there is a need for operating the plugin to operate my Back4App account, which I actually did. So you can see the green balloon over here that you can expand to see exactly the operations that are being made from the plugin and from ChatGPT to your Back4App account, and it's going to create the class for me. So these operations might or might not work at first, because it really depends on the interpretation that ChatGPT has on what you described. But the plugin is once again very smart to understand when it didn't run successfully and try again with a different solution. So it seems it has been successfully created. So let's go back to our Back4App account and refresh the screen so I can have the leaked schemas. If we just refresh all this, as you can see, I have client data over here, and I have complete name as a string, partner, which is a pointer to client data, orders count, which is a number, birth date, which is a date, is active, which is a boolean, a location, which is a geopoint, and picture, which is a file. Now let's ask ChatGPT to fill up this class with some test data so we can start testing my app. So now please fill up this class with 10 sample records. Now, most of this data can be created by ChatGPT except by the file type, because it needs to actually have the files to upload the Back4App servers. I'll tell the plugin that it can skip this property just to ensure there will be no conflicts when running it. But all the other data types should be able to be filled up by ChatGPT and the plugin by itself. You can skip the picture property, hit enter, And once again, the plugin will identify it has to interact with Back4App, open up the green balloon so you can see the requests that are being done and get the response. And as I just said, it is smart enough to understand when it had trouble running and try to run it again and fix everything by itself. Most of the times you have a very good result at the first try, but depending on the complexity of what you are trying to achieve, you might need to let it work for some time so we can try different solutions and have all on what you requested done at the very end. As you can see, it's creating the structure. So I have James Smith, which has a birth date, and this date over here is active is false. It has a geo point that is just a sample, and orders count, which is 3. And it's doing that for all the 10 records it's going to create. Now, it's hard to try to predict the behavior of the plugin, but for what I've seen so far, these requests will be run successfully, and we will have our 10 clients as a sample in the very end of this process. Let's wait for it to finish. So it successfully added the 10 sample records. Let's go back to our Back4App account and try to see if those records are set here. So I'll just reload this, and here we have all 10 records created containing the location and the is active and the birth date and also the complete name. It didn't fill up any partners, but we can ask it to do so. And of course, it skipped the files because I told it could ignore. But during the life cycle of an application, it is very common for your database design to change over time as you need to add more data to it. So let's suppose I need to add yet another field here. All I have to do is to go back to the plugin and ask it to create the data type that is needed for my new use case. So let's ask it to hold to create a new property so I can hold the client's address too. So this looks good. Now please modify this class to also have a property to hold the client's address. Now it should probably use the type string once again, so it can hold the street name and the zip code all into just one big property, but you can also ask it to break it down depending on your needs. So let's describe the type of data we're trying to hold, so the client has more, the plugin has more information on what's going to the site. So I want this property to hold the whole address, such as street name, zip code, country, and city, all in this same property. So hopefully it will choose the data type string, and we can also add it, ask it to fill up this field as well. So it actually chose the object data type because it's probably going to break it down for me, which is actually a very good solution that I didn't think of. Now, if I just have one big string as I described, it will be hard, for instance, to select only the zip code from that string. I will need to break the string down myself to retrieve the data that I want. But if I do the property as the object type as ChatGPT and the plugin suggested, it will create a JSON object where it's very, very easy to implement some code that retrieves, for instance, only the zip code for me. So let's ask it to do that. And as you saw already, it gave a better solution that I was going to give myself. So please, would you like to proceed adding the address property? So yes. Many times this also happens. It will ask you if you want to proceed. You don't have to manually ask it. So there you go. So the object data type was successfully added. Let's go back there and check. I'm going to refresh this so we can have the latest schema containing the new data type. And there we go. We have address as object. Let's ask to fill this up. So please update all sample records to also have sample addresses. So it correctly identified the application, and it's starting to generate the addresses that it will fill up into my app. All right, it runs successfully. So let's go back there and refresh so we can test if it worked. And there we go. All the addresses are filled up. And last but not least, we can now ask the plugin to generate some cloud code to consume this data from the database design. So it so far has all the information that we gave it to decide the very best structure to hold all the data that I asked. But many times when it's going to try to create some cloud code, it has to retrieve the full schema in order to decide exactly how it's going to operate this data. So let's ask it to create a cloud code where I can retrieve, for instance, the client that has the highest number of orders, which is 10. And from this client, let's say I want to retrieve the address so I can send some mail to this client. So now create a cloud code function that finds the client that has more orders. And then the name of the property, orders count. This cloud code function should retrieve the address for the client so I can mail them. You can follow in real time it writing the cloud code function. So it's going to write it's a big string over here, but it will correctly deploy it on your Back4App account, so it's very easy to read over there as well. So Cloud Code changes were successfully deployed. So if we go back to Back4App and go to our Cloud Code section, open our main.js file, here you'll find our Cloud Code function named client with most orders. It's going to look for clients into the client data class. It's going to order descending by orders count, get the very first one, which means the highest number of orders count, and then it's going to retrieve the top client address. So we can test this here on the API. If you go to console, change the type of request to post and type functions / and the function name. So if I just run this, you see that my client that has most purchases lives in the 101 Fine Road in London. Let's go back to the database. And the client which has 10 records lives in 101 Pine Road, and if we expand this, it is in London. So there you go. This is the true power of the database design features of the Back4App plugin for ChatGPT. It gives you very, very elegant solutions, and it produces all what you need to store your data only by describing the goals that you want to achieve. So if you like this content, please leave a like in this video and consider subscribing to the channel so it can help us grow. Also share this link with a friend and they can learn something too. If you are subscribed, thank you for that. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or any implementation you'd like to see, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. We always answer all the questions. I hope this content was useful to you and hope to see you back. See you soon. Bye bye.